As for a recommendation for climate NGOs, I think the first thing to understand is that in many cases, disabled people have not felt welcome in the environmental and climate movements. Eco-ableism is a form of ableism that shows up when, for instance, straw bans disregard the needs of the disabled people who rely on them, or when a campaign, such as the straw ban one, over-focuses on individual rather than systemic responses to climate change. Campaigning for public transport advocacy, which doesn't also advocate for mobility parking and modified and subsidized electric vehicles for people with mobility impairments, is another example. Unless climate organizations campaign for safe footpaths alongside the low emissions cycling and micromobility options they champion, they are furthering eco-ableism. So that's something environmental and climate NGOs need to become aware of and seek to combat when formulating their campaign demands to make sure they are inclusive of disabled people. Of course, more inclusive campaign messaging is not enough either. Every aspect of the organization, physical location, meetings, online spaces, events, communications, and so on also needs to be accessible to and inclusive of disabled people in all our diversity. This is work that NGOs need to start doing straight away, even if none of their membership is currently openly identifying as disabled. If anyone is looking for guidance on getting started with this, I can share a few resources with you, and I'll leave my contact details at the end. Two other disabled campaigners who have been instrumental in this work in the climate movement in Aotearoa are Kira Sherwood-O'Regan and Jason Boberg. They have also been attending the COP summits for several years now and have started a network called Sustained Ability to help disabled people have more of a voice in the climate conversations internationally, especially at COP. You can go to sustainedability.org to find out more, and if you scroll down the page or search for the words reading list, you'll find a great collection of written pieces on disability and climate justice too. So that's sustainedability.org. Within organizations of persons with disabilities, those of us who have more knowledge about climate change and some of the ways it impacts on our disabled communities can work alongside our representative organizations to help build their capacity in representing us. For example, I drafted a climate and environment position statement for a disabled people's organization that I'm part of in Aotearoa. Also, organizations aligned with climate justice can join the Climate Action Network, which is a global network driving collective and sustainable action to fight the climate crisis and to achieve social and racial justice. It is a good way of keeping up with what's going on in the climate NGO space and being able to input into that. And full disclosure, I was recently appointed as a board member of the New Zealand node of the Climate Action Network. As to recommendations for government, when they are doing consultations about climate policy, sometimes they do engage with youth organizations, but disabled people are not necessarily represented in those organizations. So it's vital to make sure our voices as disabled young people are also at the table. When governments draw up those lists of stakeholders who are adversely and disproportionately impacted by climate change and who need to be consulted with, disabled people absolutely must be there, including disabled young people. Also, having one or two lines indicating that disability causes disproportionate impacts in the climate risk reports that governments make is not good enough at all. The advice and recommendations from disabled people and our representative organizations need to be woven into climate policy on everything from disaster risk reduction to all parts of transition planning, whether that is transport, city planning, work, sustainable housing, migration, you name it, we need to be there. That's all from me. If you'd like to get in touch, you can email me at ainekc@gmail.com. So ainekc@gmail.com, or find me at ainekc95 on Twitter. Thanks so much for listening.